Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you guys doing? Welcome to IELTS dedicated session number 5. In this session, we're going to be talking about writing. So we've already talked about listening. We've already talked about reading. We did 2 sessions on listening, 2 sessions on reading. I think we're going to do 2 to 3 sessions on writing. Sound good, everybody? Cool. You guys excited? All right, so how do you guys feel about writing? Are you guys familiar with IELTS writing? So it's a little bit similar to the TOEFL, and it's also a little bit different at the same time. So in this class, we're going to be talking about task number 1. All right, what do you guys know about task number 1? Yeah, so you have to look at some kind of chart or graph or picture, and then what do you have to do? You basically have to summarize it. I mean, that's really it. It's rather straightforward. You don't really have to analyze it. You don't have to provide any commentary. It's essentially just a summary. So I thought that I would show you what to look for. So I want you to imagine, everyone close your eyes, and you're taking the IELTS. And then you go to task 1 writing, you're going to be looking at a chart of some sort. The first thing that you have to look for is the given information. So the cool thing about IELTS is they actually give you a sentence which tells you what the chart is about. You need to read that sentence. That sentence is more important than you think it is, because not only does it tell you what it's about, but you can rephrase the sentence. You can rephrase it. And then, actually, not even you can, you have to. You have to rephrase the sentence as your opening line. Okay, so that's number 1. The second thing you have to look for is what? What do you guys think? So I just looked at the given information. What do I have to look at for number 2? No, you don't really have to look at titles. The next thing that you're looking for is a general trend. So some kind of statement or some kind of observation that describes the overall chart. Not describes a piece of it, not describes, even most of it, but something that describes essentially all of it. And sometimes it's not as obvious as you think it is. If they show just the chart increasing, well, obviously the general trend is it's increasing. But sometimes you really do have to look for it. Okay, sound good? Now, after you look for the general trend, what do you think you have to look for? So we just looked at the general trend. You have to look for specifics. So for example, what's the peak? What's the low point? What is the trend from 1975 to 1985? Does it fluctuate? Etc., etc., etc. And then finally, I encourage you to look for one more thing. One more thing. Before I tell you what that is, does anyone want to venture a guess? What is that last thing that you should look for? Yeah, anomaly. You should look for surprising information. Outliers, exceptions. Something that's like, ooh, that's interesting. That's kind of weird. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm a big believer in whenever you do a test to have a plan. So whenever you look at a chart, on the IELTS, the very first thing you want to look for is the general info. You then want to look for the general trend, then the specifics, and then the surprising information. So it's like boom, 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 boom. So let's actually do an example together. Okay, so here is the given information. Does everyone see the first sentence? Remember, do not ignore this sentence. This sentence is very, very important. It says the charts below show the percentage of water used for different purposes in 6 areas of the world. Before I show you what the chart is, can you guys predict what kind of chart we're going to be looking at? What kind of chart shows percentages? Yeah, this is probably going to be a pie chart. So we have a pie chart, and it's also going to show different purposes, right? For how many different regions? 6 different regions. Do you think that this is something that we can fit on one pie chart, or do we need more? We probably need more. In fact, there's going to be 6 of them. Okay, let's make sure we actually understand this. So, we have region 1. We have region 2. We have region 3. We have region 4, region 5, and region 6. But remember, that's not the only thing we're looking for. What else are we looking for according to the given information? So we have our 6 regions, but what else? We're looking for the different purposes. So everyone, take a look at this chart. Do you see the different purposes? Yeah, if you look at the bottom here. So we have industrial, we have agriculture, and we have domestic. So notice all of this is the given information. Here comes your job. You have to create a sentence that encapsulates the overall trend of what you're looking at. I'll give you guys about 2 minutes. Think about it. Okay, keep in mind there's probably more than one correct answer here, but you just have to create a sentence that summarizes the overall trend or the overall charts. Like you can't, for example, focus only on North America. You can't, for example, focus only on Central Asia. So does anyone want to volunteer and tell me what they notice here? All right, we have a volunteer from Anupam. Hey, Anupam, how are you?
Hi, Greg. I'm good. A little bit scared because I haven't spoken for a long time.
Oh, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I believe in the sixth continent, most of them are dependent on agriculture,
Yep.
and North America and Europe is based on industrialization.
Yep, I
And
agree with you. Yeah, I agree. That would be the trend that I would recognize. I would say that most of the regions, be careful we don't say countries or continents, right? Because Africa is not a country and then Central Asia is not a continent. So most of the regions depend on agriculture, but North America and Europe appear to be more industrialized, something like that, right? Do you agree with that?
yes, certainly.
Okay, good job. Now, did anyone indicate a different trend? You know, there's more than one answer here. I'm not saying that's the only thing. Did anyone catch something different? Okay, are we good? Do we all agree with that? That most of these regions depend on agriculture or heavily favor agriculture, whereas North America and Europe kind of favor industry. Cool? We're all on the same page? Okay. The next thing we have to look for are specifics. So whenever we talk about specifics, we want to talk about a couple of things. Number one, obviously, individual regions. You could say, for example, North America has 48% of its water use devoted to industry. Okay. However, you also want to look for things like the peaks and the valleys, the highest and the lowest. So, which region devotes the most to agriculture? Looks like it's going to be Central Asia, right? So, that is something that we probably want to say. Which region devotes the least to agriculture? It looks like it's going to be Europe, right there. Which country devotes the most to industry? Europe. So it's kind of interesting from a peak and a valley standpoint. Europe devotes, the most to industry and the least to agriculture. So obviously that would be something that we want to point out. All right. However, you also want to point out similarities. Does anyone see any similarities here? Yeah, don't you guys agree that agricultural usage for Africa, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia are nearly identical? They're very, very similar. So 84, 88, 81, maybe that's something that we want to point out. Some of you guys are pointing out that domestic use tends to be kind of similar, right? Domestic use tends to be kind of a similar for all 6 countries with the exception of South America, something like that. So, you put it this way, how many specific pieces of information do you want to identify? Remember, this essay is not that long, so it's not like you have to have 10 pieces of specific information. How many pieces do you guys think? Yeah, I'm thinking anywhere from like 3 to 5, something like that. It doesn't have to really show a trend. It doesn't have to be like pattern based. Really, you're just looking for 3 to 5 sentences that highlight specific information. And then finally, I'm going to give you guys about 2 minutes. Do you notice anything interesting or peculiar or exceptional about this chart? Okay, I'll give you guys about 2 minutes. Think about it. Okay, any volunteers? Do you notice anything interesting or kind of weird about any of this stuff? All right, let's go to Jameen. If I can find my mouse cursor. Hey, Jameen, how are you?
Hey Greg, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, so I found like 2 things.
Sure, go ahead.
The first thing is like for Central Asia and Southeast Asia, the domestic use is same, that is 10%. And
But that's not exactly weird, right? Wouldn't that just be more under the specific information?
so let's for the second thing, let's say industrial use in Central Asia is less. Like
Yeah, I think you're identifying specific information, not really anything that's weird. Remember, you're
Okay.
trying to identify something that's weird. Let's try Rishika. Hey, Rishika, what do you think?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
So one anomaly that I noticed was that most of these regions which have a higher percentage of water usage for agriculture have very little devoted to domestic use, but that's not the case for South America,
Oh,
because South America has a lot of usage for agriculture, but still it has a good 19%
mm-hmm.
for domestic suppose, which hasn't been observed in any of these other, agriculture focused countries, areas.
Yeah, I would say that's perfect. Yeah, so those of you who didn't hear what she said that in countries or regions dominated by agriculture, and we really have four of them: one, two, three, four. It seems like domestic use tends to be quite low, but South America seems to be an exception. For some reason, they're using 20% for domestic use. So, very good job, Rishika. I think that's a good one.
Yep.
Good. Does anyone notice one other thing? Okay, I'll tell you what I notice. Okay, here, Ruchika. Hey, Ruchika, how are you?
Hi, Greg. I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good.
I wanted to congratulate you. How I did not raise my hand yesterday for anything for your 1 year thing.
Oh, thank you so
Congratulations.
much. Thank you so much.
So what I noticed is the industrial use in Europe. Oh, okay. No. Okay, I missed North America. Okay, Greg, I think that was not unique. So
Okay, no
sorry
problem.
about
So
that.
you're just highlighting specific information, right? Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So probably what I would identify as kind of weird and unique is three of these pie charts seem to be almost identical right here. So despite the fact that we're looking at three different regions, which are near each other or not near each other, they're not near each other. Africa is not near Southeast Asia. Africa is not near Central Asia. These are pretty far apart. That's pretty far apart, right? These three charts are essentially identical. Now, I know I mentioned that in the specific information, but I mentioned it more in the context of, oh, specifically agriculture use is identical. But it's not just agriculture. It's not just agriculture. Everything is identical. Would that be an expectation with three different regions which are far apart from each other? It's not just one area. It's not just the agriculture use. It's also the domestic use is identical and the industrial use is very close to each other as well. If you actually look at North America and Europe, both of these are, industrial nations. You could even highlight that industrial nations tend to follow the same pattern. And remember, it's not necessarily like an anomaly or an exception. It's also just a very kind of interesting observation. Kind of an interesting observation. It doesn't always have to be like an exception. You could say, interestingly, industrial countries or regions seem to follow the exact same pattern, whereas non-industrial industries seem to follow the exact same pattern. There's very, very little variation right there. That's probably what I would do in the third body paragraph, which we will talk about soon. Now, one thing, be careful. Do I want to bring in outside knowledge? Do I want to talk about, oh, Central Asia has a low population? No, don't do that. Don't do that. Cool? All right, let's do another one. Here's another one, everybody. I'm going to have you guys identify everything by yourself, and I'll give you about 5 minutes. So number one, look at the given information. Number two, try to identify the general trend. Number three, try to identify some specifics. And then finally, number four, try to identify some interesting observations. Okay, I'll give you guys 5 minutes. I'm going to bring my timer over here. Okay, timer. Okay, can you guys see my timer? All right, guys, 5 minutes. Good luck. Okay, so the given information, the graph below shows average carbon dioxide emissions per person in the UK, Sweden, Italy, and Portugal between 1967 and 2007. Can I have a volunteer give me the general trend? What would you say? All right, let's go to Sharifa. Hey, Sharifa.
Hi, Greg. I see that the general trends, like if I summarize it to two countries are increasing and the other two are like somewhat decreasing.
I wouldn't even use the word somewhat. I would just say decreasing.
Decreasing,
Yeah, I agree with you. That would be the general trend that I would identify too. You know, two countries which are they? Italy and Portugal are increasing their carbon emissions per person, and then two countries are decreasing. It's exactly what I would say.
Yeah.
Cool. Good job, Sharifa. Okay, does anybody have a different general trend? Does anyone have a different one? Okay, we good? Does everyone agree with that one? Does everyone agree with that one? Okay. So now let's identify some specific information. All right. So specifically, I mean, you could say that Italy went from 4 metric tons to a little less than 8. You could say that from 1967 to 1977, Sweden was actually on the rise from about 9 to a little bit over 10. Who's the top? Who's the very top? Yeah, the very top is the UK. So you could say that, the UK has peak usage, which is like 11 or something like that. What else? I mean, you guys get the idea here, right? Just specific information. It doesn't have to be very complex. But here comes the more interesting bit. Does anybody notice anything interesting here? It doesn't have to be an exception, but it has to be something kind of interesting. Hey, Jameen, what do you think?
Hey, Greg, can you listen to me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can see two things. Like first, let's say for Sweden, there was an increase of carbon dioxide emission until 1977, and then after that there was a drastic fall.
Yeah, I agree. So it's kind of weird, right? Sweden seems to be kind of the weird country because it seems like they were on a path to surpass the UK, right?
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they just had this drastic decrease. Okay, I love it. Good job. All right, let's do another one.
For
Let's give another one a shot. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go to Ruchika. Hey, Ruchika, what do you think?
So what I noticed interesting was the UK had a fall from 1967 to 2007, while others had fluctuations, or they were just increasing or decreasing.
To me, that seems like specific information, but there is something about the UK I think you can talk about. So the UK experienced a fall, right? Agree?
Yes.
But despite this, what can you tell me about the UK? Even though the UK was declining, did it ever lose its top position?
No.
Yeah, so I would say that. I would say even though the UK shows a declining trend, it never once throughout the whatever 40-year period, whatever this is, it never once throughout the 40-year period was surpassed by any 3 of the other countries. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Asir, do you have another one?
We can say that Portugal and Italy kind of plateaued from 1997 to 2007.
Yeah, you could say that. That is kind of interesting. For some reason, they seemed like they were getting it under control or something.
They have a stability.
Yeah, okay. I like that. That
they are
works.
not increasing.
Yep, that works as well. I agree with all of yours. I agree with you guys. There is one more that I would probably mention. Doesn't it seem like the 4 countries are kind of converging? Doesn't it seem like that? It's like they're kind of converging into like some like equilibrium point. Now, of course, I'm extrapolating that information, but it's okay to extrapolate a little bit. You just don't want to extrapolate excessively. All right. Hey, Jamie.
Yeah, I was just saying about that Sweden, Portugal already converged, right?
Sweden and Portugal are in the converse. Okay, let's take a look.
Yeah.
Okay, kind of walk me through that. You mean like right here?
Yeah. At 2007, we can look at 2007. They already at the same point, right?
Right. Yeah, you could mention that. You could mention that they actually kind of reach the same point, but Portugal reaches it in a bad way, whereas Sweden reaches it in a good way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I like it. I like it. All right, guys. Now I'm going to challenge you. So I gave you 5 minutes. Do you have 5 minutes on the real IELTS to notice these things? Yes or no? No. You really have only about 1 or 2 minutes. So are you guys ready for the challenge? I'm only going to give you 2 minutes. Here we go. Good luck. Okay, can somebody tell me the general trend here? What's the general trend? Shwetha. Hey, Shwetha, what do you think?
Hi, Greg. I think the general trend is the sales of coffee as well as bananas have both increased in most of the countries.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say most. I would say in the vast majority of cases,
Yes.
right? The sales
Yes.
of coffee and banana showed an increasing trend from 1999 to 2004. Yep, I completely agree with that. Does anyone have a different general trend or disagree with that? Okay, we good? So obviously the specific information, you guys can do that, look at the maximum, look at the minimum, stuff like that. So let's talk more about this surprising or interesting information. Can anybody give me some examples? Hey, Jameen, what do you think?
Yeah, right. So, as the other person just said, that there was an increasing trend for majority of the countries. But let's say for bananas of Sweden and Denmark,
Mm-hmm.
in 1999, it was 1.8 for Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
But at 2004, it was 1, so there was a decrease.
Yeah, this is kind of
And
weird,
the
right?
same for Denmark.
Yeah, this is kind of a weird trend, isn't it? It's like, that's
Yeah,
weird.
it is.
Yeah. Okay, I agree completely. Does anyone notice anything else that's interesting? All right, let's go to Ruchika. Hey, Ruchika. Hey, Ruchika.
Hey, yeah. So for both coffee and bananas, Sweden in 2004 was 1 million euros.
Right, we said that already, right? Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, yeah, I didn't notice that. That is weird. Interesting. Okay. So, yeah, it was for Sweden for some reason does not like coffee or bananas is basically what you're saying, right? Huh. Okay, cool.
Yes.
I like that. Good one. Good one. Okay, does anyone have a different one? All right. Are we good? Okay. I agree with you guys. Some other ones that I've noticed were the following. So it's true that coffee showed an increasing trend, right? But what the hell was going on in the UK? Look at this. Isn't this weird? So most of the gains were modest. So 3 to 6, that's a multiplication of 2. 1.8 to 2, that's a multiplication of 1 something. Most of these gains are relatively modest. What the hell was going on in the UK with coffee? I mean, what happened? We're only talking about a 5-year period here, everybody. What happened in that 5 years? You don't think that's weird? Okay. Also, can't we say the same for Switzerland with the bananas? What the heck happened? Right? Now, in talking about sheer numbers, obviously Switzerland has the biggest number gain. But if you're talking about proportion gain, notice that these proportion gains are also quite large. That's a multiplication factor of 5.5. 0.6 is a multiplication factor of what? Something like 7. So as you can see, there are a lot of things that you can highlight here. Okay. I know, Vishu, you live in Europe. Do they just love bananas in Switzerland? No? Okay. Because according to this chart, they must really love bananas. All right. Now, before we start writing this, because we're going to start writing this soon, remember, you're not always looking at charts. I think a lot of people forget that. The IELTS sometimes likes to throw you a curveball, don't they? So you might be looking at a map, or you might be looking at a process. Let me show you an example. Take a look at this one, everybody. Is this a chart? I mean, not really. This is more like a process. So you have to prepare for this because IELTS might show you like something that is a curveball. So everyone, do the same process. I'll give you 4 minutes. Okay, I think that should be enough time. Does anyone want to volunteer? What's the general trend here? What would you write? No brave souls? All right, let's go to Anupam. Hey, Anupam, what would you write here?
The general trends is the process of life cycle, how they took 5 to 6 months, that is the smallest time phase, and then it is 4 years, then within 1 year they are moving to C.
So again, you didn't really encapsulate all three parts of this, so that's not exactly what we're looking for with the general trend. Let's go to Vin Katswarlu. Hey, what do you think?
It's an recycling process where the adult salmon lays the eggs, and from there it will start with the fry, and it will move to the next stage smolt, and again it reach to the adult salmon.
Yeah.
It's a recycling process.
Again, that sounds like kind of specific information. Let's try one more. Hey, Rishika, how are you?
Hello, Craig. I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Also, the last time I answered, I forgot to congratulate you on the 1 year anniversary.
Oh, you don't have to. Yeah, no need. Yeah, but thank you.
No, I wanted to. So, so the trend that I observed was that when they are, young, the salmons, they are in a more safer place like the upper river, which is shallow, and then they move deeper to the lower river when they are older, and also they are growing in size, which is obvious, but it is a trend.
No, okay, so first of all, I don't really agree with the lower and the shallow, whatever that is. I do, however, agree that they're growing in size. So that should be what you guys identified. Obviously, this is a general trend, right? I mean, they are increasing in size from every step. Yeah, so I do agree with that. I probably wouldn't mention fast flowing or lower river or deeper. I probably wouldn't put that because I don't really see the trend there. Do you?
I thought that it may be, as they're growing, they're also moving, from locations where they have slower water and that are not as deep per se.
Yeah, but the problem is when you talk about shallowness or deep, you can only reference these two, right? Do I know about this one? No. And when you talk about the movement, I only can reference these two. Do I know about this one? So no, I wouldn't identify that as a general trend. Does that make sense?
Right, right.
Now, there is another general trend that I feel like you guys are missing. It's about how long this process takes. So whenever a salmon is born, how long until that salmon also lays eggs? Approximately how long? About 10 years, right? About 10 years, right? So it takes about 5 to 6 months for the egg to hatch. And then it's about 4 years right here. And then it's another 5 years right here. And then that salmon lays eggs himself or herself, whatever it is, right? So notice how that trend captures all of this. Doesn't it capture all of this? Now be careful with the word life cycle. Doesn't life cycle mean death? Are these salmon dying? I don't think they're dying. I think they're laying eggs is what it looks like. Right? I don't think these salmon are dying. I could be wrong. But it seems like these salmon are laying eggs, but I'm not really sure, to be honest. Okay, so general trend number 1 is that they're increasing in size. General trend number 2, this entire process takes about 10 years. Okay, sound good? Rishika has a question. Hey, Rishika.
No, I'm so sorry. I forgot to lower my hand.
No worries. All right, now we have to identify some interesting information. Any volunteers for that? Does anyone see anything interesting? Nothing interesting at all. No one sees anything. Okay, here we go. Asir, what do you think?
The size difference from smolt to adult salmon is quite big.
Yeah, so this jump from here to here is kind of small, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a small jump, but from here to here is massive.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree with you. Yep, I like that a lot. Good job. Does anyone else notice any other weird or kind of exceptional things? Oh, you guys hate this one, don't you? You guys are like praying, please give me a pie chart. Please give me a pie chart. No maps, no processes. Please, please, please. Okay, here's another thing that I noticed, which is a little bit weird. These baby fish, the fry, holy crap, that is a lot of variation, right? Unless that means growth cycle. It's hard for me to tell by this chart. If it means growth cycle, it goes from 3 centimeters to 8 centimeters, then that's not really exceptional. But if it means that they can vary in size from 3 to 8, that's quite a difference. It would be like one human baby being 10 pounds and another human baby being 30 pounds, which would be pretty strange. So maybe I would identify that. Another weird thing that I would identify is the weaker fish. You know, keep in mind, these are kind of the weaker fish are in the faster flowing waters, which is a little bit against my expectation because I thought that the adult strong salmon would be in the faster flowing waters, not the weaker ones. Something like that. Cool? Does that make sense, everybody? All right. Now we write. Here we go. Now we write. Are you excited? Move that over. Okay. Can everybody see this? Okay. So the first thing we need to do is rephrase what it says right here. So it says the graph below. The line graph shows, indicates average carbon dioxide emissions, mean carbon dioxide emissions per capita, not per person, per capita, in the UK in 4 countries: the United Kingdom, Sweden, Italy, and Portugal, over a 40-year period. So notice what I'm doing here, everybody. I'm taking the given information, and what am I doing with it? I'm rephrasing it. So instead of graph, what did I say? I said line graph. Instead of shows, what did I say? Indicates. Instead of average, what did I say? Mean. Instead of per person, what did I say? Per capita. What did I say instead of United Kingdom, Sweden, Italy, and Portugal? I said in 4 countries. And what did I say instead of between 1967 and 2007? Over a 40-year period. Now, I actually talked to an IELTS grader, and he said it is very, very important that you do this. If you do not do this, you will have your score lowered. So you can't ignore it, and you cannot copy it. You have to rephrase it. Okay, any questions about that? Vishu, can you give his address? No, I will not give you his address. Okay, now that I rephrase this sentence, what do I need to do? What was the first thing you guys identified? The general trend. So here we go. So remember what the general trend was? The general trend was 2 countries are decreasing, 2 countries are increasing. So you say, in general, 2 of the listed countries, the United Kingdom and Sweden, show decreasing trends over the period, while the other 2, Italy and Portugal, exhibited a increasing trend. Cool? Any questions about this? Any questions? Now, somebody said, how long does this IELTS essay need to be? It only has to be 150 words, which is really short when you think about it. So I already have 53 words. I only need 100 more. Well, that was easy. So what was the second thing we identified? Wasn't it specifics? So I always start the next paragraph with the following. More specifically, boom. Now, there's two ways to talk about specific information. You can use a verb or you can use a noun. You can use a verb or you can use a noun. So let me show you what I mean here. More specifically, let's say that Portugal had the smallest value. So Portugal had the lowest CO2 emissions of any country in 1967 and stayed lower than all right up until the end. In addition, now notice here I'm using a noun, had the lowest. Now watch me use a verb. In addition, let's talk about, what country do you want me to talk about? United Kingdom, Sweden, Italy, or Portugal? Okay, let's talk about UK. And you say, in addition, the United Kingdom, watch me use a verb here. In addition, the emissions from the UK slightly declined from 1967 to 2007. So notice here I'm using a verb. In the first case, I used a noun. In the second case, I used a verb. Let me show you using the noun again. Then you could say, moreover, let's talk about Italy. So from 4 to 8. Moreover, there was a noticeable rise in the CO2 emissions in Italy from approximately 4 million or 4 tons to 8 tons. Like that. And that's really it. I mean, that's it. Look how many words I have so far. 108. That's it. So here I'm using a noun. Here I'm using a verb. Here I'm using a verb. And then here I'm using a noun. The reason why this is so important is because it shows sentence variety. It shows the grader that you can write a variety of sentences. And then finally, what do we conclude with? We conclude with the interesting stuff. So what do you do? Interestingly, like that, Sweden demonstrated a rising trend from what year? 1967 to about 1980. 1967 to about 1980. But then experienced a dramatic decline until 2007. And then we had one more interesting piece of information. What was another interesting piece of information? The UK always stayed at the top, right? And then you finally say, furthermore, despite illustrating a falling trend line, the United Kingdom still remained the top producer of carbon emissions throughout the entire 40-year period. And voila, I am done. That's it. Let's see how many words I have. So let's get rid of these extra words. $150 exactly. And of course, you can throw on 1 or 2 extra sentences, right? You can put one more piece of specific information, one more interesting fact, and then you're done. Cool? Any questions? All right, we have a question from Sharifa. Let me find my mouse cursor. There it is. Hey, Sharifa.
Hi, Greg. I just want to ask, at the end of this, paragraph that we have written, do we have to summarize again what we have seen, or to write it like, it's not a conclusion, but I mean, re-summarizing what we have saw?
You definitely can if you want to add a few words to it. I've seen cases where they do it and cases where they don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to affect the grading if it's like doesn't have anything in after the,
To my knowledge, no. To my knowledge, no. But if you're worried, you can always add it.
Yeah. All
Cool.
right, thanks.
Okay. So everyone, I just put the chart and this essay on Discord, so if you want to check it out. And then I'm writing on Discord right now. Remember the template. So number 1, rephrase given information. Okay. Number 2, you need to identify general trend. Number 3, identify specifics using a combination of verbs and nouns. And don't forget the adverbs and the adjectives as well. And then finally, number 4, identify those peculiar or interesting observations. All right. Any more questions, guys? All right. We have a question from Rajib. Hey, Rajib. You have to unmute your microphone. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Basically, my question is not from writing, but I have a question from reading.
Okay.
So you have noted one point that Cambridge doesn't really give more than 2 not given in the true false questions, right?
I'm not saying never, but I have noticed a trend where, let's say you have 7.
You are right.
Yeah.
You are right. I have practiced a lot of tests and noticed this also.
Yeah.
So do you have any kind of, similar patterns that we can follow for a better score?
I mean, like, for example, for the writing, one thing that you have to do for a better score is like rephrase this sentence. So I don't necessarily have patterns that you can follow. Remember, the main pattern on the IELTS is vocab changing, right? Vocab changing, vocab changing, vocab changing. And the same is true of the writing, is it not? So when you rephrase this given information, aren't you changing the vocab?
Yeah.
So the thing about the IELTS is it's all about vocab. Yeah.
Yes, right.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thank you.
All right, man. All right, everybody. This was fun. Next class, we're going to be talking about task 2 writing. I'm going to be giving you some homework for task number 1. Everyone, have a wonderful day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.